Hello friends and welcome to another session over networking basics, and today we are going to discuss about ports. So let's understand what ports are or ports is in networking. Okay, so let's take a look at technical definition of a port. So a port is a communication endpoint. A port number is a 16-bit unassigned integer, thus ranging from 0 to 65,535. So a port number can go from 0 to 65,535. A port number is always associated with an IP address of a host and a type of protocol. So it's associated with IP, that is Internet Protocol, and the transport protocol, that means whether it's TCP or UDP for communication. It completes the destination or origination network address of a message, and specific port numbers are reserved to identify specific services so that an arriving packet can be easily forwarded to a running application. So there are some standard ports which we would be discussing in a while. So this was all about technical definition of port, but usually I try to explain this with a different analogy to most of my students. And let's start with that. So just like I'm recording this video for you guys, and I'm explaining all the technical terms in English, which is a kind of communication language which you guys can understand, right? Now if I start explaining the same stuff in my regional language, I'm very sure not all of you would get it. Okay, so it's like I would be speaking in some language which you might not be able to understand, right? So let's say if I speak in my regional language and you're not able to understand, you would need some translator. So now this port is nothing but is a kind of, if I it's a language that you can understand. Now the fact that I am speaking in English, you are able to understand it. So when I'm talking to you, I can speak in English, but if I'm talking to someone who knows my regional language, if I'm talking to him, he would understand my regional language just because he knows that language, right? So think of a port as a language. That's how I explain to some people in layman terms. So let's take a understand this definition more through a diagram. So usually you would have a web server and database in two-tier architecture, and usually what you do is from a client machine, like from your laptop, you in a browser you try to open a website, and let's say that website would be, for that matter, facebook.com or linkedin.com. Okay, now that request goes through a browser and the default port for that is 80. So defaultly that port is 80, but the secure side, like when you try to access some banking sites or most of the websites which have which are secured, those requests would go over port 443. Now uh, let's talk about a database. Okay, now there are defined ports, like I said. So the port for MySQL database is 3306. The defined port for Microsoft like MS SQL database is 1433, and the port defined for Oracle database is 1521. Now when your web server is talking to a database, now web server will have to talk to this database on port 1433. Now here I have assumed this database as MS SQL. So like I said, the defined port for MS SQL is 1433. So it's like my MS SQL knows the language of over 1433. You can say that. So if any web server is talking to any, you can say MS SQL, then it has to talk to over this port 1433. Now note that for most of the, for few of the databases which are open source, like for MySQL and those, there are there are some applications for which you can change the ports. So it's not only that you need to communicate with those databases or those applications over these defined ports, you can change those ports. There are settings to change these default ports or standard ports to make it more secure, but these are defined ports, I would say, and these are default ports. So whenever someone says that I have a MySQL, definitely the default port would be 3306. Whenever someone says that they are using Oracle or MS SQL, then the understood default ports would be 1433 and 1521. So in our case, coming back to the example, the fact that this is MS SQL, that is Microsoft SQL database, then web server will have to, or your application server will have to talk to this database on port 443. So it will have to forward the request on port 1433. So that's what it is. A port is a kind of communication endpoint where the communication happens, and that's where, and when the request is sent from web or application server to database, there is also response from the database. So even usually the response is over same port, but sometimes it's over different port. The reverse response has to be acknowledged by web server or application server. But that is what a port is about. I hope you find this analogy simple and you are able to understand the concept of ports. Please write your view in the comment box. I would be waiting to read those reviews. How did you find this definition or this analogy? And also write me any of the networking concept that you would like to like me to explain, or like me to come back with some videos on. So I would love to hear from you. I'll see you with some more networking concept in upcoming videos. See you in the next section. Goodbye.